Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started, and the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife and sharing some fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. My guest today is Jacynth Bassett, who is the founder of The Bias Cut, which is a rather fabulous online fashion boutique. And Jacynth is probably, I know she is certainly the current youngest guest I have had on here, but she's probably always going to be the youngest guest because you are quite ahead of your curve, aren't you, Jacynth? So, and you're on a mission to change ageism, which is very much what I'm about as well. So welcome. Tell us first, how did you come to be doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so I was actually studying law. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and then realised it wasn't really for me, but wanted to go into business instead. And fashion was kind of the obvious route, just because it's been a big passion of mine for my life. But I started thinking a lot about my mum and how we'd go shopping, and she would really struggle to find pieces that she wanted to wear as she got increasingly older. So either the clothes weren't very well for her figure, or shop assistants were even quite dismissive. And then obviously online, the majority of pictures are all youth orientated. So that was the idea first came to me I was in 2012. And then as soon as I graduated, I started developing the business and found that so many other women increasingly felt the same, increasingly felt invisible or irrelevant in the eyes of the fashion industry, primarily because of their age. So that was it really. That became my mission, to cut through that and to help women, women who feel less relevant, to help empower them. And I think it's something that really affects all of us, even if right now, as you say, I'm younger, doesn't mean that one day I won't be older. Hopefully, actually it will be a privilege to be able to grow older. So that was really where it all started from. And since then, it's just continued to grow, this sense of wanting to fight ageism. And certainly since launch, we've been seeing a lot more inclusivity. There's still a long way to go, but it's getting better. But yeah, that's my ultimate mission, is to hopefully get to the point where age is just almost irrelevant when it comes to fashion and style.
I mean, I think it's absolutely incredible what you're doing, because you are under 30 and yet you have a better understanding of ageism than a lot of women, certainly of my age or even older, because this has become your passion, hasn't it? And you want to learn about it and change it.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I didn't stop doing law. Well, the reason I stopped doing law, because it wasn't something I was passionate about. So I have to do something that I was really passionate about. And yeah, definitely. I mean, I started researching it all in 2014, so 5 years ago now. And since then, obviously, I've learned a lot more. I've done a lot of research, studies, surveys, and things have really become, it's opened up my eyes. It's also helped me recognize my own, perhaps, internalized bias that I didn't realize was there. I think ageism is so entrenched in society. Even the best of us who really don't want it to exist fall foul of it a lot of the time, just even with using words. Yeah. So it's something that I have really dedicated a lot of time to understanding, and particularly because at the moment I'm not subject to it, I felt almost an even greater responsibility to really understand. That's why I started with a blog as well, to connect and understand more how women were feeling. And then we've got the Ageism is Never in Style movement, and I'm a member of a lot of groups on Facebook, which in theory are for women over 40, over 50, 60, but we're all talking about the same topic. So I mean, I believe education is the key to really everything in terms of discrimination or frankly, a lot of issues in the world. So the more we just keep educating ourselves on this, the more likely we'll get to a better place.
And what do your friends think of it all? Because they're probably not even thinking about this, are they?
Yeah, it was interesting. At the beginning, I would say I lost a few friends from university. At first, I didn't really tell people exactly what I was doing. So I knew I had this business idea, but I was developing it, and it was kind of under wraps what it was really about until I launched it. And certainly I had people who thought, well, Jacynth's not really doing anything anymore, not worth really talking to. Or the common misconception and assumption was that I was basically creating an ASOS, i.e. for my own demographic. Nobody had not occurred to anyone that it might not be for that, other than the people who knew, which was about a handful of people. Then when I launched, I think it did at first maybe take a few people, but I'd probably say more distant friends. My closer friends have actually become very supportive, and they wear our ageism is never in style badge. Is my friend, who funny enough is exactly the same age as me, we're born the same day, and she was telling me how she was wearing her badge on her bag on the tube and how it sparked conversation. So actually, yeah, they're more and more becoming receptive to the idea. I think the big thing that at first they couldn't get their heads around slightly was more the idea that our clothes could work on women of all ages. So when they heard that we were primarily about championing women over 40, it was, well then it's old frumpy clothes, because that is the preconceived idea. And they didn't almost give it a second look. And then I'd be out and about wearing pieces. And because my rule is, if I wouldn't want to wear the pieces, why should someone older want to wear them? Ultimately, yes, there are things like shape changes and style and lifestyle, so those are things I always take into account. But in terms of an aesthetic, if I don't think it's a nice enough piece at 26, why should somebody older have to wear something second best? So I'd wear the pieces out and about all the time, and my friends would go, oh, where's that from? That's really nice. I'm like, it's from the business. Like, oh. And actually, more recently, I've had friends going, oh, I saw some new stuff on your website. I really like some of the pieces. So, yeah, I think they're coming round to it more and more, and more supportive. Not that they weren't supportive first, but I think they're understanding why it's more of something to talk about. And actually, some of them tell me they've told their bosses about what I'm doing and things like that. So clearly they are themselves having their own views challenged and developed, and that's really encouraging.
That's how it starts, isn't it? They get the views challenged, and then hopefully there's the ripple effect, because they'll then challenge other people,
and sort of they start thinking, oh, maybe, again, none of them were ageist openly or anything like that, but they it's just got some of them to think, actually, no, I think I have noticed that as well. And it just opens their eyes to maybe what their parents are going through, or other family members, or in the workplace with older colleagues and things like that I think they're tuning into. And they're definitely, I mean, generally speaking, I think more younger people are starting to engage. I actually have been approached by quite a lot of students recently from London College of Fashion and similar universities who are doing projects, and they want to focus on aging. So that's really encouraging, that more and more people are realizing this is a conversation for all ages. It's not just for those who are actually in the midst of experiencing it.
Because as Ashton Applewhite says, ageism is prejudice against our future selves, isn't it? And when we start out early, we're going to age. We're all going to age.
Yeah, aging is a privilege that a lot of people don't get to enjoy, and it's also, ageism is the only ism that will, in theory, affect every single person. So it's, as you say, it's discriminating against yourself. I do get the odd person, actually often older people, who have said occasionally, well, why do you care? Well, why don't you just enjoy being young? That sort of thing. And I sort of said, well, just because I don't personally experience it right now doesn't mean I shouldn't care about it in the same way a man shouldn't care. It's like saying a man shouldn't care about women's rights, or we care about racial issues. It's the same thing. So yeah, I have that occasionally, but not that many people. And I think when I say that, they sort of go, oh, that's a sort of fair point. So to say it's almost nonsensical that we do this to ourselves.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how did you come up with the name? Because it is brilliant, the Bias Cut. It's a fantastic name.
Thank you. Yes, well, actually, I spent a year coming up with the name. I know we all this whole what's in a name sort of thing, but really names are very important. Yeah. And I needed something that encompassed what we're about, but also was quite easy to remember, and also hasn't been done. It isn't easy coming up with a name also that doesn't already exist out there, unless you're going to make up words. Essentially, you can't very easily find something that exists or that doesn't exist already. And then I had this other working name, but it didn't feel right. So I knew in my gut that whilst it was sort of what I was calling it, I wasn't going to go down that route. And then, funny enough, what happened was I ended up having a nap one day and woke up, and it was like, the Bias Cut, I've got it. It makes total sense. Because I also did want to do something that was sort of a play on words, not a pun or anything, because I think sometimes they can get a little bit old. You know, once you've got the joke, it's sort of like, and then you move on. But I wanted something that still referenced fashion. So, I mean, I always think Net-a-Porter is a fantastic name because it's obviously a play on pret-a-porter. So I wanted something that had that sort of edge to it. So it made sense that the Bias Cut was about obviously cutting through bias, ageist bias, but also is a technical term in fashion. So that was it, really. That's how it came about. So it just goes to show occasionally having a nap is very useful.
Brilliant.
I think almost switching with my brain for a bit was I think the problem is when you spend so long just studying, get too close to it. And it was almost giving myself a bit of space that helped.
So tell us about your campaign, Ageism is Never in Style, because that is very cool as well.
Yeah, so that started in September 2016, and I'll be honest, that was not part of the plan at the very beginning. I knew I wanted to create this empowering boutique that celebrates style of all ages, but I hadn't also intended to create a movement. And then what I was finding was I do a lot of writing, and the writing was becoming more and more popular, sort of the challenging, the discussions that, there's some articles with star tips, but a lot of them were far more of an engaging and critiquing and praising and looking at certain things in the fashion industry. And then I realized also there were a lot of women who had feelings, wanted to share them. Not everybody wants to write a blog. A lot of women are shy to do that or have other things. Writing a blog takes time. It's much more than people realize. So I felt like even though people were enjoying my words, it didn't feel right that it was just my words. I wanted to offer other women and men who were interested in the issue a platform as well. So an opportunity for them to share their thoughts, even if they didn't want to write, start a blog. So first it was we had guest writers, so they're for people who do want to write something but maybe don't have their own platform to share it on. And then I decided the name that name came to me pretty quickly. Actually, I was at a debate on racial diversity actually in the fashion industry, and I was sort of thinking about it, and I decided I wanted to start. I wasn't content really with the rate things were going at. Things were very incremental in terms of progress. We've probably seen a little bit more in the past maybe year or so, but at the time, so 2016, it was still pretty reserved. I was still experiencing a lot of negativity from designers, over age and all of these things. So I wanted to create this space that would bring together a lot of people. And the other thing I realized was there isn't a lot of those things for women over 40. I mean, there are more now, but also at the time, I think there are so many platforms for younger people, but not as many. There are so many people out there over 40 who have a voice and are doing things, but they're not almost all collectively being shared. It's only if you really hear about them. So that was where it started. And then it was last year actually that it sort of took off even more, was when I introduced our free badges. And that was honestly going to be a massive hit or miss. I had the idea a few weeks before London Fashion Week about wearing a badge, a nice badge, but also wear badges in a slightly sort of protesty, activist way. And so I just decided, you know what, I'll do it. It could be a complete flop and nobody's interested. And if that's the case, then I'll move on. But it actually ended up being such a hit that people were ordering them around the world, and we've had to restock them. They're all free, but we've had to restock them several times. So that was really great, and seeing people on social media. And actually then I'd also have people who contacted me saying, I've been wearing my badge and I had my children start talking to me about aging. Or I've been at the post office and someone said, that's a cool badge, where's that from? Actually, the best one was when I was at the V&A. Actually, a couple of members of staff asked to put them on their lanyards. So it was really good. And so I have some more plans on taking it now to the next level. But at the moment, on the Facebook page, which is primarily where we share a lot of, what's going on, it's really good. It sparks a lot of debate. It's interesting because it also does show perhaps at times misunderstandings about ageism. Some of the people, particularly Madonna, gets a lot of attacks when anything's shared about her. And I find that it's quite eye-opening as well, just seeing where people are on this issue when they don't like ageism, but where do they sit in terms of actually how they think should be addressed. And then we have the private group, that's the platform for people to share pictures or their own articles and things like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, the way people respond to Madonna, because even though, yes, as you say, we don't want to be ageist, so many of us have these sort of standard formulaic cut-off points for how people can behave or what they can do or what they can wear. And we still have that. It's really entrenched, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing in particular things, plastic surgery always comes up, Botox, all these things. And the thing about ageism is it's actually about choice, having the choice to age however you want without external pressure from society or judgment. And we're kind of going almost from one extreme to the other, where there are a lot of groups and brands who promote a sense of pro-aging, but actually still have a very narrow vision of what that looks like. One of the big ones is about going grey or white and sort of ditching the hair dye as you get older. And I think it's great that more women feel comfortable to do that, but that doesn't mean every woman should feel they have to do that. And I mean, as one person said to me in her 50s, she said, well, I actually haven't gone grey anyway. But, equally, some people prefer dyeing their hair. My mum's actually sort of she's got red and then bits of white. And a lot of women have been attacked for not dyeing their hair. I've spoken to women who said, I get people say to me, I'm not embracing my age and I'm trying to hide it by the fact that I'm dyeing my hair. Well, also, grey hair just won't suit everybody. And it's things like that I think that we're in danger of, whilst we're opening our views as to what new form of aging can look like, that doesn't mean it's still got to be so restrictive. I mean, I had somebody contact me and she had this massive Facebook group and she said she didn't approve of what I was doing and of ageism as never in style, because she said women as they get older shouldn't care about looking stylish or sexy. It should be about going grey, aging timelessly and wearing classic clothes. And I said to her, I'm afraid you fundamentally don't understand what ageism is about. But what concerned me more than anything was the fact she was the admin of this massive, I think it had like nearly 10,000 people in it, of older women who were going to be influenced by her views on this. And it's the same with Botox. I have no issue with Botox or any form of plastic surgery if it's the right decision for you. I think the thing is, a lot of women, particularly in Hollywood, have themselves said they've done it more because they felt pressured to do it to remain youthful. But if you're doing it just because you yourself feel more comfortable having it done, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And that's where I think in particular Madonna sparks a lot of debate, because after all, she isn't aging gracefully in the sense of she's kind of aging disgracefully with attitude, but in a really cool way. She has had work done. She's got no issue with flashing skin. That's the other one I see a lot of, is people being very negative about flashing skin. And look, she's not to everyone's taste. She's never been to everyone's taste. That's what she's been about. She's always been about being, Marmite, really. But it's the fact that now in particular her age is making people be so dismissive of her. And I think, well, actually not dismissive, very critical of her. And that's where I do get concerned. And actually I've made it quite clear with our group that we won't tolerate any form of negative critical term, like words. The other one I see is about calling slimmer women, stick thin or stick insects, things like that. And one of the things that we use are non-professional real women. I mean, I don't like the term real women, because even a real model, a professional model is a real woman, but you know what I mean. And our models have size varied from size 6 to size 16 at the moment, 5 foot to 5'10", really different shapes as well. And some of the slimmer women have, when I've shared pictures, again, people have said, oh, but this woman's just so skinny, she's not a real woman. And I know that's actually hurt the feelings of some of the models that have, these are just normal women. They're like, this is just how I'm built. And so, yeah, again, I see that being like, well, I'd like to see more real women, not stick insects. Well, they are real too. I think we should have more diversity within that demographic, absolutely, in terms of shape and size. I think there's a lot of putting other people down in order to build yourself up. And it's the same with this whole, I've seen, people saying, oh, we're way better than younger people. We know how to dress better. We'll show them what it's really like. Well, no, actually, can dress just as well, but don't do that by putting someone else down. That's just going to further divide. Instead, we should be going, they look great, whatever their age. And that's where I think there's a bit of a problem.
And when women compete in that way, we just sort of buy in to the ideas of the patriarchy, don't we? We buy into the fact that we're supposed to look a certain way, or not supposed to look a certain way, or we're supposed to be this way or that way. And I think absolutely it's about us being us. But I want us to be able to make those decisions from a position of strength, so there's no element of shame. And that's where sometimes it gets difficult.
It is difficult. And I do think with social media, it's particularly difficult because it's exposed. I don't think it's created. I think it's exposed people's critical, judgmental, sometimes pretty nasty sides. And that scares people. I mean, even just down to writing. I've known quite a lot of people who've said they'd like to write a blog or start their own business. The number one thing that they're terrified of is getting trolled online. And they've said to me, I'm really nervous that's going to happen. And I mean, I've been trolled. I don't know many people who haven't been trolled, but we shouldn't be letting them win on that one. And yeah, it's an interesting one actually with the ageism is never a star, because we're very open to women and men being part of the conversation. I do actually think we need more men to be part of the conversation, because at the moment it's primarily focused around women. And I do think that's because of the ageism and sexism. There are issues there as well, absolutely, far more than perhaps for men. But that doesn't mean that men don't experience ageism. But when we share pictures of, I don't know, a celebrity or whatever it is, or a model, yeah, some of the men come in saying, well, this is what I think a woman should look like, and I prefer her looking like that. And it's a difficult one, because of course everyone's entitled to their opinion, and you want them to be able to share it, but equally I don't want it to be at the detriment again of people reading that going, oh, I guess I better dress in this way then, because that's still how men prefer. And obviously that was that French man a couple of months ago who said he would never date anyone under 50. So it does, as you say, it needs to come from an empowering point of view rather than one of fear or insecurity. Or a lot of women tell me they dress a certain way because they feel safe dressing like that. So again, that's not a healthy relationship with yourself. If you are dressing to feel safe, you should be dressing to make yourself feel great and beautiful and glamorous, or however you want to feel, in a positive way, or powerful, not almost I need to hide behind in the shadows. So I do think we need to be very careful to recognize the impact that can have on people of all ages. And whilst I do think it's great that more and more people feel they can get their voice out, I think we owe a responsibility to ourselves and as a group to also be more open-minded about what aging can look like.
So what advice do you have for a woman in midlife and beyond who is struggling to find things that look good on her, struggling a bit with maybe having put on some weight, not feeling happy about how she looks now? What can you tell her? Because you work with a lot of women in that situation, don't you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, confidence is ultimately the biggest thing that makes a huge difference. I mean, I actually often say confidence is the ultimate key to style. If you feel good and that comes through in your outfit, then that really makes a big difference to how you look. Well, I first of all would say, in terms of weight, it's important to recognize it is natural for a lot of women, particularly if they've gone through menopause, and our bodies do change. And rather than beating yourself up about not looking like you did once upon a time, try and see it as almost a new opportunity to dress in a different way, because nobody can wear everything. And maybe clothes that you couldn't wear before now will look fantastic on you, whereas pieces that you may have worn in the past now don't as much. But this is just a new opportunity to try to find new designs, because, you know, so whether you're apple shaped or pear shaped, you can't wear everything. But if you change, you might be able to suddenly find things. And just say, try and treat it more as an opportunity. I think also we do need to see more representation of that, so that will help a lot. The other one that I think is quite dangerous is if you keep things in your wardrobe on the basis you may be able to wear them one a day again, once upon a time again, because you may be able to, but if ultimately, if it doesn't bring you joy when you think about it or see it, it's time to let it go. Because if looking at a piece of clothing, no matter how much you loved it, makes you just feel bad about yourself because you can't fit into it right now, what's the point? You know, donate it to a charity shop where someone else can feel good in it. And then the other thing I always say is to give anything a go. And that's what a lot of women feel, as I said, about feeling they have to dress in a way that makes them feel safe. I notice they all often gravitate towards the same colours, the same cuts. And yet, while some of those pieces might look great on them, there are other things out there that are totally different and actually could be a real breath of fresh air into your wardrobe. And other people's noticed that. Colour and print in particular, a lot of women are quite worried about. And I know women who've said, I love prints, but I can't wear them because people wouldn't be used to seeing me in a print or something like that. And well, maybe they wouldn't be, but that doesn't mean you're going to look bad in it. And also there are a lot of different kinds of prints out there. So I also think people who just banish print full stop, that you're almost really restricting yourself. And the same with colour. I think try, if something catches your eye, even if it may not be your color you would have thought would work on you, give it a go, because there are so many shades out there and subtle differences, or even the cut of the garment itself might make it work. A lot of women I know follow the color me beautiful ideas that you wear certain shades if you're a winter or an autumn or a spring. I don't personally believe that you should, it's something to rigorously follow. They've done actually a lot of studies from a psychologist and things to show actually they don't really work. I mean, another study that they proved was this idea that yeah, well it's not that, it's just that color, your skin and clothes change in the light so much that what really, if you could look fine in one light in it and not in another one. And also, you know, even these other sort of rules like horizontal stripes make you look bigger. Actually, they found a study to show they make you look slimmer than vertical stripes. Wow. So things like that, I would say, don't necessarily, if you don't feel comfortable throwing the rule book out entirely, that's fine. If you want to have your colours done and use it almost as a starting point to make you feel more comfortable of where to go, maybe if you stick to a colour that you feel comfortable with but in a new cut, that's the first step. But equally, do not completely dismiss something if you like the look of it because of these rules that you have set your head in. I mean, the best example I always say is one of our first ever models, we had this stunning yellow coat, kind of a canary yellow, and she said to me, I said, I think you're going to look great in it, we'll put you in it. And she said, Jacynth, I never wear yellow does not suit me. And this was a very, you know, she was a very stylish lady, so she knows her stuff. She doesn't suit me, I would never wear it, and absolutely not. And I was like, well, I would like you to wear it. And she looked fantastic in it. Not so much so, not only did she buy it in the end, but then she sent it to all her family and friends who were like, wow, you look incredible. And she openly admits, there you go, a colour I had been ignoring or rejecting my whole life, I found a shade that worked. And actually, that's actually what we get with quite a lot of our models, is we put them in pieces that a lot of them say they wouldn't have necessarily worn or styled the way they do, but it open their eyes up to go, actually, I could totally do this a bit differently. And ultimately, fashion and style is about having fun. So if you're going to put yourself in such a little restrictive box, it's going to be hard to have fun with that. And you're sort of telling yourself you don't deserve to try different things. So that is what I always say. And because ultimately, whether you're in a shop and you ordered it online, if you're in a shop, if it doesn't work, you take it off. And online, you know, free delivery and shipping, returns most of the time, you don't really lose anything out on any of that either. So why not give it a go if something catches your eye? And that's what I would definitely say is a big step forward for a lot of women. And I see that with when we do pop-ups, like we will have a design and they'll try the colour that they always wear. And I'll go, okay, let's try this colour in the same design now. And they'll put it on, be like, oh, this is different. And actually the thing is they might be worried that other people won't like it, but actually their loved ones are like, you look great. This is, you know, they see the joy, they want you to feel good, and they see the joy and the refreshing take you have on style. So that's what I would always say to try and hold on to.
Well, Jacynth, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for joining me and sharing your passion.
Thank you. No, it's been a pleasure, and I mean, so lovely to connect with you. And love also your passion and what you're doing, and such a positive outlook on midlife and menopause. So thank you so much. It's been a real honour to be on your podcast.
Thank you. We're going to change the world together.
Yes, hopefully.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife Podcast. It would really help me get the message out and inspire more women to feel empowered in midlife and beyond if you left me a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you may be listening to this. And share this podcast with your friends too. If you'd like to take your own midlife up a notch, why not join our members club? It's where you'll find the strategies, support and connection you need to live the very best next phase of life. You can find out more and get the show notes for this episode at magnificentmidlife.com. Help me change the world, one midlife woman at a time.